If you go back to the earlier episodes in this podcast, I explained the structure of what the executive code is, which is to connect your executive center with your unconscious and with the superconscious. Now, let me explain one of the reasons for doing this. Scientists say that the conscious mind can only process 50 bits of information per second. Now, that's tiny. So if you can imagine all the bits of information that we take in through our five senses, then that's absolutely really, really tiny. Our five senses being sight, sound, feeling, taste and smell. So every second, our conscious mind only has the capacity to process 50 bits of information, whereas the unconscious can process 11 million bits of information every second. Therefore, if we're trying to make a decision on something or we're trying to figure something out, our conscious mind is really quite limited. Whereas because our unconscious can process far greater amounts of information every single second, it is in a much better position to guide us as to what we should do. That's why you'll often hear people say that they trust their gut feeling more so than anything else. It's that gut feeling is your unconscious. Because it has a far greater amount of information, it can advise you better. Yet for many people, they use their conscious mind to work out problems as opposed to their unconscious. But what about the superconscious? Well, the superconscious is infinite. So if the superconscious is infinite, then surely it would make more sense to develop the connection between our conscious mind, our unconscious, and the superconscious. Well, that's why I researched over the past many years and what I put into the executive code methodology. Because if there's infinite possibilities and infinite ways in which we can achieve what we want, then surely that's something that we should be explored. Because that means that with the superconscious, all things are possible. Now, for many people, it's nearly impossible to even comprehend what infinite even looks like. So let me convey a transcript of the video I came across on YouTube, as it's probably the best I've seen in terms of understanding infinite. Now, this video is one about the Hubble Space Telescope, and this is the story of what happened. You see, in 1996, astronomers attempted to do something extraordinary. They pointed the Hubble Space Telescope into a part of the sky that seemed utterly empty, a patch devoid of any planets, stars, or galaxies. This area was close to the Big Dipper, a very familiar constellation, and the patch of sky was no bigger than a grain of sand held out at arm's length. Now, this was somewhat a risky move by scientists. After all, observing time on this telescope is in very high demand, and some question whether it would be wasted trying to look at nothing. There was a real risk that the images returned would be as black as the space in which it was being pointed. Nevertheless, they opened the telescope and slowly, over the course of 10 full days, photons that had been travelling for over 13 billion years finally ended their journey on the detector of humanity's most powerful telescope. Their feeble signals collected almost one by one. When the telescope was finally closed and the images were processed, the light from over 3,000 galaxies had covered the detector, producing one of the most profound and humbling images in all of human history. Every single spot, smear, and dot was an entire galaxy, and each one containing hundreds of billions of stars. Now, later in 2004, they did it again, this time pointing the telescope towards an area near the constellation Orion. They opened the shutter for over 11 days and 400 complete orbits around the Earth. Using detectors which increased sensitivity and filters that allowed more light through than ever before, over 10,000 galaxies appeared in what became known as the Ultra Deep Field, an image that represents the farthest we've ever seen into the universe. The photons from these galaxies left when the universe was only 500 million years old, and 13 billion years later, they end their long journey as a small blip on a telescope CCD. These galaxies, while standing absolutely still, are racing away from us, in some cases faster than the speed of light. The space between us and everything else grows larger by the minute, pushing the galaxies in this image to a distance of over 47 billion light years. And because of the universal expansion, the farther something is away from us, the more its light has shifted towards the red and the faster it appears to be moving. Edwin Hubble himself discovered this by measuring the redshift of many galaxies, and it's a measure of not only speed, but distance as well. Recently, Hubble's scientists put the icing on the cake. Using the measured redshifts of all the galaxies inside the image, they made a 3D model of the ultra deep field. There are over 1 billion galaxies in the universe. Simply saying that number doesn't really mean much to us because it doesn't provide any context. Our brains have no way to accurately put that in any meaningful perspective. When we look at this image, however, and think about the context of how it was made and really understand what it means, we instantly gain the perspective and cannot help but be forever changed by it. We pointed the most powerful telescope ever built by human beings at absolutely nothing, for no other reason than because we were curious and discovered that we occupy a very tiny place in the heavens. As it says in this narrative, it's near impossible for the human brain to comprehend the vastness of space. This in some way will give you an indication of what infinite means when it comes to the superconscious. With this, there are infinite possibilities and infinite ways in which things can come about. That's why it makes sense to connect your executive center with your unconscious and to the superconscious. That's what the executive code is about. So when it comes to your dreams of what it is that you want to achieve in life, there are infinite possibilities. And when you consider how magnificent and how perfect the universe is, you'll get an idea of how much we limit ourselves by the way we operate. Think of it this way. We can send a rocket from Earth and have it land on the moon. We can predict with great accuracy the movement and the path of every single planet in our solar system, to the extent that we can send a rocket and know where it's going to land. Despite the vastness and the infinity of the universe, it has the absolute perfection of how it works. And I haven't even talked about Fibonacci sequence or Benford's law. The universe is so perfect in how it operates. Therefore, it does not make sense to work with the universe and its laws instead of against it. That's what being in flow really absolutely means. So in the words of Buzz Lightyear in Toy Story, to infinity and beyond. Start to bring that thinking to your business and to your life, and then you'll get an idea of what's absolutely possible. But for now, as always, I wish you every success.